Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Many thanks for joining us on your favorite program on TV, Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. I am your regular host, Tunde Odeyemi, and in today's episode, we are going to focus on whistleblowing as an important governance mechanism. And of course, to do justice to this particular topic is no other person but a very distinguished fellow and council member of ICSAN, Mrs. LYNDA ONEFELI, FCIS. Mrs. LYNDA ONEFELI is a lawyer, a governance practitioner, and of course the chairman of the Publicity and Advocacy Committee of ICSAN. Mrs. ONEFELI, glad to have you on Corporate Governance Platform.
I'm glad to be here, thank you.
Okay, we are going to discuss something very germane to corporate governance, and that is whistleblowing as a governance mechanism. And without wasting much of our time, I would like to kickstart this discussion by asking, when we talk about whistleblowing, what really do we mean?
Okay, thank you. Whistleblowing, in simple terms, is the reporting of misconduct or bringing to the attention of the relevant authorities of fraud, misconduct, and other actions and activities that will be inimical to public interests.
Okay, by bringing to the attention of, is it to the attention of the board or to the attention of the management?
Of the relevant authorities, because it depends on the organization. It could be a private organization, it could be a public organization. For instance, if it's a company, depending on the company's whistleblowing policy.
Okay.
But mostly companies would encourage that the whistle is blown, within. Then when you're talking about government agencies and government organizations, public organizations, there are different authorities depending on the situation where these.
Okay, you blow the whistle to relevant authorities.
Relevant authorities.
Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to invite our viewers to be part of today's program. Whistleblowing is so important that you may want to say one or two things. So if you want to participate by probably asking questions or making comments, please do so by sending your comments or questions as a text message to 080-2323-1287, 080-2323-1287. Please no call, only text message. You have the number on the screen of your television set. Now, we talk about whistleblowing. What then is the relevance of whistleblowing to corporate governance?
Okay, so if we're going to look at the relevance of whistleblowing to corporate governance, we need to know what is the aim of whistleblowing.
Okay.
Aside from, what are the benefits? Okay, maybe I'll put it that of whistleblowing. So it brings the attention of the relevant authorities, like I said in my definition. However, it exposes fraud. For government mostly, it helps to help in the recovering of assets and funds, public funds. It also encourages transparency and builds trusts of the public trust for the government in the area of government. And when you come to corporate governance, we have said that whistleblowing is bringing forth or bringing to the relevant authorities to their attention some of those some of those things that will be coming up that are inimical, that are adverse to the company. Now we're talking about corporate governance and even in the polity. So for corporate governance, whistleblowing cannot be overemphasized. It is very, very important, because whistleblowing can help that company to prevent issues that may arise, that may cause reputational damage on the company. It lets the management to know what is happening. Sometimes these whistles are blown against against the management anyway, and sometimes against fellow staff when it comes to fellow employees, when it comes to companies. However, it brings to the attention of the management areas where things are going wrong, where they can make amends before a crisis would ensue.
Okay, that is quite germane. Now, what positive developments do you think having an effective legal framework on whistleblowing bring into a country? Okay,
so an effective legal framework for whistleblowing. We can firstly, one of the major things is the protection of whistleblower, because these whistleblowers are often seen as courageous, because many times, not even many times, logically, when someone exposes the other, the person is at a risk. Sometimes they are threatened, sometimes they are victimized, sometimes there are backlashes. There have been cases, where even decided cases in court, where there were backlash on some whistleblowers. So it is very important to have a coherent legal framework. In Nigeria, we do not have a coherent legal framework. There are guidelines. You have provisions on whistleblowing in the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018, where it puts down procedures in which by which companies should establish a whistleblowing policy. We have the Investment and Securities Act provides for it. The FCIS Act has provisions. We have the whistleblowing, but the major one, the most popular one, is actually the one by the Ministry of Finance, which is the whistleblowing policy. And through that policy, it's been reported that the government has recovered quite sums of money after the policy had been put up, and in that policy there is protection for the whistleblower. Under that policy, there is also a reward system in that policy. However, it is important to have a coherent legal framework for whistleblowers, so that those whistleblowers can be certain that they are protected. They can be certain that at the end of it all, there's no backlash, and that will give them the courage to, even when they see more, they can actually report.
Do more whistleblowing. Let me say, blow more whistle, right? Okay, you actually mentioned the one that was done, the policy framework that was done by the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
Is it for government organizations alone, or for government and corporate, private entities?
The one for Ministry of Finance is basically for government. It's basically a general policy for the federal government, for the people. Not necessarily for an organization, but it gives an opportunity for anyone who is aware of facts that have led or that are leading to misconduct. Mostly it's concentrated on it's Ministry of Finance anyway, financial misconduct, misappropriation, fraud, financial crimes, money laundering, and the likes. So it gives the citizens the opportunity to upload. You can upload anonymously, you can upload with your name, those complaints on the portal, on that policy portal.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the protection for whistleblower, but before then, I want to ask, what is the relationship between whistleblowing and risk management?
Oh, there's a big, they're like one and two. Okay. In that it mitigates risk. It's a veritable tool for risk management. Okay. Because, I had said earlier that when the whistle is blown. You know, it brings the attention of management to certain things. Sometimes they are not even aware. Sometimes they are the perpetrators of those negative acts. However, it can allow them mitigate the risk, can allow them make corrections, it can allow them make amends before it gets to a critical stage, before a crisis ensues. So it's a veritable tool for risk management. It allows the company to put its house in order, so to speak, before it causes more harm.
Okay, it's also a mechanism for risk management.
Yes.
Okay. Then we talked about the relationship between whistleblowing and risk management. What then is the relationship between whistleblowing and the concept of sustainability?
Okay, so I want to say that corporate governance, whistleblowing, risk management, sustainability, they're all, work together.
Okay.
Because in sustainability, what is sustainability? That's even the first thing. Sustainability, I'll just put it in simple terms, is the use of resources in a way. It could be any kind of resources in a way that it can be left for a future use, basically. So it could be, and the pillars, there are 3 pillars of sustainability. There's the environmental pillar, there's the social pillar, and there is the economic pillar, which is what interests companies a lot. But when you talk about environmental, one of the environmental factor, you find out that the reduction of carbon, trails of carbon footprints, ecosystem, how you find some companies dumping toxic waste, things that, or even like in our part of the world, in a country where we have oil spills, mitigation of those environmental hazards. Then you now look at the social, one of the pillars, which is the social aspect, which is about the care for employees.
Okay.
In there you can look at sexual harassment, you can look at discrimination, gender bias, and all fair treatment, fair wages, and welfare of workers generally. And then you now come to the one which is the economic aspect of it, and that has to do basically with profitability. Every company that is set up basically for profit, and that is for a profit. A company that is set up for profit wants to make profit for it to be sustainable. However, if these things, some actions are going on, and when we look at the economic factor and there's fraud going on, probably the directors are siphoning money, and the whistle is not blown. There's nobody there to actually bring this thing to the fore so that it can be curbed. It will be inimical to the sustainability of that company.
Wow.
So there are certain things, and if you also find out that there are issues of like the social aspect, sexual harassment, discrimination and all, there could be suit against the company, and it could be awarded so much against the company that can even ground the company. So there are so many, there is definitely a link between that. And if you see, when I said that there's a link between risk management, sustainability, of course, corporate governance, whistleblowing is an aspect under corporate governance. So when I say that there is a link between them, you see that it also brings in the aspect of risk management, because then these things are going wrong, the companies can then, set themselves on the right path for the sustainability of the company.
Wow, this is very deep and of course very instructive. I used to think that you only blow whistle when it concerns financial issues. I didn't know that you can blow whistles when it has to do with environmental issues and social issues. That is very deep. Thank you for sharing your thoughts there. If you're just joining us, it's Corporate Governance Platform, and we are discussing whistleblowing as an important governance mechanism. And Mrs. LYNDA ONEFELI, FCIS, is here doing justice to this very topic. Let me go into the code. But before I go into the code, I'd like to tell the viewers, to remind them again that they can be part of the show by asking questions or making comments on this particular topic. If you want to ask questions or make comment, please send it as a text message to 080-2323-1287. For the last time, 080-2323-1287. You have the number on the screen of your television set. Yeah, I want to go back to the Code of Corporate Governance 2018. And the code, a particular section of the code states that the board should ensure the existence of whistleblowing mechanism that is reliable, accessible, and guarantees the anonymity of the whistleblower. Now, the question is, can you explain the relevance of the word reliability, accessibility, and anonymity of the whistleblower in the context of this particular session?
Okay, so it's actually Principle 19 of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 that deals with whistleblowing. And accessibility, anonymity, I mean, these are concepts that, firstly, the policy, the code encourages the board to set up policies, and the accessibility, these policies have to be accessible for them to be effective. Okay. Now, the employees should be able to have access to the whatever mechanism that has been put in place. Now, probably it's a portal, probably it's an email address, probably it's a phone number, whatever that the company has set up, whatever means by which the company has set up for is as a mechanism for effective whistleblowing in the organization, then they must have access to it. You cannot set up have a mechanism that is not accessible. Okay. And then when we talk about we then talk about anonymity, it is very important. Even though it has been said that you must not blow the whistle anonymously, but you have the option to blow anonymously. Because okay. Yes, some people there are certain sensitive issues and situations when these people don't want to be known because they feel their families, the lives of their families or their own lives will be at risk, or they're afraid of victimization, they're afraid of backlash. I can tell you that there have been, in 2015, there are a couple of cases. But the case of Olu Ibirogba against the council of Yabatech. Okay. He had this Olu Ibirogba had blown the whistle and said that the then rector, had embezzled funds, was involved in some misappropriation. And guess what happened to him? Obviously, he was sacked. And he challenged his sack. And the court held that he had to be reinstated. In fact, he was awarded the damages, the sum of 20 million in damages, which was a good thing. Yes, because that's the backlash that could come. Imagine that he had blown that whistle anonymously. Probably they wouldn't know who blew the whistle, and he wouldn't face that backlash. But I guess he was ready for it. There's also another case against the chairman of the Police Service Commission. The similar circumstance, and in this instance, the person was now framed for theft, framed with all sorts, and charged to court, and he was convicted. But he appealed it, and it was overturned, and he was reinstated, paid all his allowances and everything. I mean, these are some things that can happen. So that area of anonymity is very, very important.
I will talk about anonymity again when we discuss the issue of reward for whistleblower. But then you mentioned two vital cases now that are very good. But there are few cases, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the issue of whistleblowing. But what happens? What are the consequences if an organization does not get adequate protection for the whistleblower?
They're just going to lose out on the benefits of whistleblowing. I mean, whistleblowing has some of its disadvantages. So some people may want to use it as a means for victim or witch hunting. Probably they are aggrieved over something. However, it has immense benefits. So where a company has refused to protect its whistleblowers, then you have fewer people who will blow the whistle. And those crucial information that they can get that will be useful to the company, for the good of the company, they're going to miss out on it. And it never bodes well, basically.
Okay, there was somebody that sent a message here. Let me just read it out. It said the last whistleblower was humiliated. I don't know whether it's the example that you gave. The last whistleblower was humiliated and tormented. His lawyer was the one paying more on him. I don't quite understand that, and the person didn't put his name. Please, if you are out there and you send this text message, can you make it clearer to us? Say the last whistleblower was humiliated and tormented. His lawyer was the one paying more on him.
Okay, probably the person didn't have funds and the lawyer had to use his funds to that's why we're talking about anonymity. Okay. And it depends on it. That's why there's a choice. If you want to be anonymous, fine. And then the policies are talking about protecting the anonymity. You respect this person wants to be anonymous. You have to protect the anonymity of it. But when the person has come out, I mean, you know the consequences that could arise from coming out and saying, look, I'm accusing so and so of doing this. There are consequences. But that's where our legal framework has to be more effective to protect the backlash that would come, the victimization that will come, the stigmatization, because sometimes in the organization, everybody looks at you as a pariah. They treat you like a pariah. You are now like, oh, this one that is a tell, goes to tell about everything that happens in the organization. Yes. Yeah. So there's victimization, there's stigmatization. But that's why we need an effective legal framework that can protect the whistleblower.
Okay, maybe because of the financial reward, and that is the question I want to ask you. People relinquish their anonymity because of the financial reward. Now, what is your idea, or do you subscribe to the fact that whistleblowers should be monetarily rewarded, and what are your reasons for your answer? Okay,
so personally, right, I like the fact that they are being rewarded because I think they deserve it. Okay. With all the, look at what the other person sent in now, how humiliation, or what they're going to face, and at least something, a respite for all what that person will face. Of course, if you are anonymous, I'm not sure you can get your reward because you're anonymous. So if you choose, and there should be, I think there should be a reward. Like in the US, they give rewards. They've rewarded, the highest amount that's been rewarded in the US is $200 million.
Wow.
Yes, for a whistleblower. And
I want to blow one.
Even in Nigeria here, the Ikoyi debacle, we hear that the whistleblower was paid $421 million. Wow. I read that. So, well, I don't know how true, but I read it. It was in the papers. I read it. So that's something to, that's something to go by. So it's. I think they should. However, I have a concern with that, with monetary rewards, because when we talk, earlier you said, oh, you didn't realize that whistleblowing could other than
environmental issues and social issues.
We focus so much on financial. But in this part, particularly in Nigeria, we should also look at environmental. We should look at social. We're looking at financial. Now we're talking about 2.5% to 5% of whatever that is recovered, right? It's fine. I like it. I'm not particular about what percentage, but that's what the policy provides, which is good. However, what if someone blows a whistle on a socially motivated cause? Yes. So what are you going to reward him or her with? What if it's environmental?
Wow.
What are you going to reward? So I think that we should look into that aspect, the reward system. That's all. I do clearly support a reward system, but we should look into how that reward will be given based on.
Okay, should small organization also come under the obligation of, forming or formulating whistleblowing policy?
Well, you know that particularly with smaller, when you look at the organization that oversees companies, the CAC, when you look at the CAMA, there are more relaxed rules for small
organizations,
private, small companies. So I would say that they should be strongly encouraged to have this policy. I don't know if it should be, I don't know that it should be mandatory. However, it is, I would say categorically that it is important that they have a whistleblowing policy, because there are so many advantages to having that policy and having an effective mechanism for whistleblowing. You can imagine a small company where they have shareholders, maybe 5 shareholders who are probably some of them are directors, probably 2 are directors and 3 are not, and the 2 probably they're all directors, probably 2 are executive directors, the other 3 are not, and the 2 executive directors are colluding to misappropriate the assets of the company. and there's no whistleblowing policy. And some employees are aware of this. How do they communicate that? Because it's about public interest, it's about stakeholders, the good, for the good. That's the aim of whistleblowing, for the good of the public, for the good of stakeholders. So in what of the stakeholders, even if they have 10, 20 shareholders, the point is, a few are misappropriating these funds, and somebody is aware, and his or her hands are tied. There's no way to put it. So I would always advise every company, be it small, no matter how small it is, to have an effective whistleblowing mechanism.
Okay, I wanted to advise both the government and the private organization in less than 30 seconds because of our time. What advice do you give to government organization on the use of whistleblowing and the private organizations on how to get whistleblowing right?
Okay, so even though we have recorded some wins with the whistleblowing policy, but I don't think it's enough. I think that the government should have a coherent policy that protects whistleblowers. You know, if you remember again what the message the person sent, there are backlash. There's always something. But the government needs to take decisive steps. There was a bill on whistleblowing. It got after the first reading. We didn't hear anything about it. This was in 2016.
Okay.
So what is the government doing about this? They need to be decisive, take a place. And for companies, then they should put, we have talked about accessibility. Your policy must have mechanisms that makes it accessible for your employees to access it. It must be able to protect
the whistleblower.
And there are quite a number, but because of time.
Okay, because of time, we may need to wrap up here. But one thing, this may be a yes or no question. Can ICSAN also take up the job of formulating whistleblowing policies for organizations?
Oh yes, definitely.
ICSAN can do that.
Definitely.
Okay. So, if you desire to have whistleblowing policy, ICSAN is right at your doorstep. Somebody also asked a question before we wrap up. I will need to get back to that person later. Is asking where is the location of ICSAN. We will get back to that person directly to tell the location of ICSAN. But if you want to know generally, you can visit ICSAN on their website. Thank you for being part of today's show. Mrs. LYNDA ONEFELI, FCIS, thank you for sharing your thoughts on whistleblowing.
It's been my pleasure.
And for our viewers, thank you for being part of today's program. We invite you to join us again next week, same time, same station. I am Tunde Odeyemi, the host. My producer has been Adegboyega Labiro, and the technical director today is David Adepoju. We see you next week, but while waiting till next week, keep sharing, keep spreading the gospel of corporate governance. Bye for now.
Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.